Hey everyone, welcome to another episode. In today's story, a motorist in desperate need of gas stumbles upon an isolated gas station in the middle of nowhere. But as he pulls into the desolate establishment, he quickly realizes that he's not alone, and what he discovers next will haunt him for the rest of his life. So let's jump right into the story. It was a dark and stormy night, the kind of night when the wind screams and the rain pours so heavily that the world turns into a grey blur. And that's exactly how our protagonist found himself stranded, lost on a dark and lonely stretch of highway. His car sputtered and coughed, finally giving out just beyond a rusty sign advertising a gas station up ahead. The old gas station was an island in a sea of darkness. Ben, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, squinted through the relentless downpour. The fuel gauge had been on empty for 20 miles, and the nearest town his GPS offered up was a ghost. The sign, a rusted, crooked thing with half its neon flickering, was a beacon of hope he couldn't afford to ignore. He pulled up to a single pump, the engine groaning into silence. Rain hammered the roof, and the only light came from the gas station's lone window, casting a sickly yellow glow. Ben grabbed his umbrella and sprinted for the door. The bell above the door jingled, a cheerless sound in the oppressive silence. The attendant, a gaunt man with a face like crumpled paper, didn't look up from the newspaper on the counter. "Pump 4, he rasped, his voice as dry as dead leaves. Ben's heart sank. He hadn't seen a pump for. He walked back to the door and looked out again, a pit forming in his stomach. There were only 3 pumps. He re-entered the station, the bell jingling again, and a cold dread began to crawl up his spine. "There's no pump 4, Ben said, his voice a little too loud in the quiet. The attendant slowly lowered his paper, revealing eyes that were hollow and black, like burnt holes. A smile, impossibly wide and wet, spread across his face, cracking the paper-thin skin. "Oh, it's out there," the attendant hissed, his voice no longer a rasp, but a wet, hungry whisper. "But it only comes out for those who are truly alone." A deafening clap of thunder shook the shack, and the lights flickered and died. The rain stopped abruptly, replaced by a deep, unnatural silence. Ben's breath hitched in his throat. Outside, the darkness shifted. A sound came, a wet dragging noise, and a faint light began to glow where pump 4 should have been. It wasn't a pump, but a tall skeletal shape with long thin limbs, its body hunched over a black, glistening puddle on the ground. The light it emitted wasn't electrical, but a phosphorescent, sickly green. As Ben watched, the creature raised its head. It had no face, only a single, glowing orb where its head should have been, and its body seemed to be a mass of entangled, twitching hoses. Ben stumbled back, a scream caught in his throat. The creature turned its orb-like head, and a second later, the ground around the gas station began to tremble. A low rumble grew louder, and from the black sludge, more of the hose creatures rose, their forms twisting and contorting into gruesome parodies of pumps and signs. The attendant behind the counter laughed, a sound like gravel in a blender. "Welcome to the station, boy," he croaked, his grin still stretching. "Pump 4's all for you." Ben didn't hesitate. He burst through the door, abandoning his car in the road. He ran, the wet, dragging sounds of the creatures behind him, the glowing green light growing brighter with every step. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew one thing. He had to outrun the gas station and the things that called it home. He ran until his lungs burned, the sounds of their wet, slithering approach a horrifying countdown in his mind. Then, just when he thought he might collapse from exhaustion, the sounds faded into the distance, the rhythmic dripping of water replacing the unsettling dragging. Gasping for breath, Ben stumbled to a halt and turned around. The creatures weren't visible, but the light from their twisted forms still pulsed ominously on the horizon. Just then, the clouds parted, revealing a sliver of moon. Ben squinted, trying to pierce the gloom. In the distance, he could make out the twisted shapes of the creatures, their forms writhing and shifting like living shadows. What had he stumbled upon? Why had the creatures emerged? And why did the attendant seem so pleased by their awakening? As if emerging from a nightmare, these questions gave Ben goosebumps. Was he truly alone? Or were the horrors he'd seen merely waiting for their next victim? He was so lost in thought that he didn't notice the figure emerge from the shadows of the gas station, until it was almost upon him. The attendant, his face still split into that disturbing grin, strolled leisurely towards Ben. Having second thoughts, he rasped, his voice a grating echo of its former self. Ben swallowed hard, backing away from the attendant. "What are those things?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The attendant tilted his head, his grin widening. "Why, those are the pumps," he said, his voice dripping with false cheer. "They just come out to say hi. Don't mind them." With that, he shuffled back towards the gas station, disappearing into the gloom. Ben stood frozen, his eyes fixed on the gas station. He had to get out of there. He started walking, keeping his eyes on the gas station, half expecting the hose creatures to slither out of the windows, but they didn't. The only movement was the swaying of the rusty sign above the pumps. Ben quickened his pace, then broke into a run. The image of the attendant's chilling smile burned into his mind. He didn't stop running until he reached the highway. Then, collapsing on the shoulder, he pulled out his phone and dialed 911. As the police car pulled up to the derelict gas station, its headlights cutting through the gloom, the attendant stepped out from behind the counter. He watched the police car approach, a predatory gleam in his eye. When the officer got out and approached the door, he knocked twice, the sound echoing in the silence. The attendant smiled, a wide predatory grin splitting his face. He stepped back as the door creaked open, revealing the officer standing in the doorway. "Can I help you?" the attendant asked, his voice as smooth as oil. The officer, his face grim, stepped into the store. "I got a call about a possible break-in," he said, his eyes scanning the room. The attendant nodded. "Ah yes, I'm sure it was just the wind," he said, his voice dripping with false concern. The officer didn't reply. He continued his inspection, his gaze lingering on the counter where the phone should have been. As the officer stepped out of the gas station, he noticed something odd, a set of tire tracks leading away from the gas station and into the darkness. He followed the tracks, his eyes searching the gloom. The attendant watched him go, a predatory gleam in his eye. Once the officer was out of sight, he turned back to the counter and picked up the phone. He dialed a number, his voice a low growl. "They're on to us," he said. "We have to move." A hiss came over the line, and then the connection was broken. The attendant slammed the phone down, his face contorted with rage. "Damn them," he hissed. "They won't get away this time." He turned and disappeared into the back room. As the officer continued his investigation, the gas station loomed behind him, a silent sentinel in the darkness. What had drawn the officer to this abandoned gas station in the first place? Was it just a routine call, or was there more to it? And what secrets did the gas station hold that made the attendants so desperate to keep them hidden? As the night wore on, the mystery of the gas station deepened, its shadows concealing whatever horrors it had in store. Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave a big thumbs up for more content. And hey, if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Click that subscribe button and join our growing community. We've got lots of amazing content coming your way, and you won't want to miss a single second of it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.